Imagine this. A world without technology. Technology that we need and that makes us who we are today. Way back, the wonderful world that we currently live in was once just like that. Significant ideas regarding the political landscape, the economy, the society, the environment, and religion. Ideas central to our slowly evolving state of living did not exist. They were mere specks, scraps, shreds of ambition within the psyches of our innovators. The non-fiction book How We Got to Now, written by author Steven Johnson, tells the story of how Galileo Galilei was one of the first human beings to recognize systematic motion. He was praying in a monastery and noticed the rhythmic movement of the chandeliers above. He sought to recreate it, but didn't for a long time. Galileo only realized his idea of recreating the rhythmic tick of a pendulum after having studied mechanics, dynamics, and other areas of physics. This insists that in order to get the gist of an idea, in order to develop it, the idea needs to percolate in one's mind and be combined with all kinds of refined information. If Galileo were able to do it in his time, could we do it in ours? Do we live in a society that will allow people to acquire the experiences necessary to produce new innovations and change? The present political zeitgeist in the world shows that there is a trend of breaking away from traditional ideologies. Author Michael Adams discusses the rise of authoritarianism and xenophobia in the United States. This is featured in his non-fiction book, Could It Happen Here? Canada in the Age of Trump and Brexit. There are a multitude of causes for the skewed attitude of the American people. The terrorist attacks of 9/11? There's more. The rise of terrorism in the Middle East? That is not all. Terrorism in Paris and the Manchester attacks? All of these instances propagate the idea that all of Islam possesses a pernicious perspective on religion. The newfound feelings of fragility within the United States made the situation ripe for an authority such as Donald Trump to surge into power. What about gay marriage? Author Rhonda Gibson writes in her book Same-Sex Marriage and Social Media that more liberal states opt to legalize same-sex marriage when LGBTQ individuals started to be more open about their sexual orientation. Therefore, pressure was being placed on more traditional right-wing states to legalize same-sex marriage, but they did not budge on the issue. This injustice caused by the original issue inspired activism amongst the people, who then pushed for societal reform. Consequently, different ideas were established to become the new societal norm. This request was passed from the people, to the state governors, to the legislative branch of government, to the executive branch of government, and finally, thanks to Barack Obama, who shared left-wing views, same-sex marriage was finally legalized.
8 years ago, it would have been hard to believe that we could repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, pass the Hate Crimes Act, and legalize marriage equality all with one president.
President Obama, you presided over a period of time that turned out to be, in many ways, one of the most positive periods of time ever in the lives of gay Americans.
For changing the way people thought about us.
For fighting for a world where I can raise my daughter to love whoever she wants to love.
Thank you for acknowledging that love is love.
You had the first transgender presidential appointee.
It changed the country and it changed the world.
Over the course of history, the United States, more specifically the Republican Party, have been scrutinized for the overwhelming low ethnic diversity within Congress and Cabinet. Fortunately, the Democratic Party knows that diversity within government is a necessity in order to bring up pertinent issues that affect minority groups. David Meslin, featured in Adams' book, wishes to emulate the success of the Democratic Party by proposing a new style of voting. Instead of a first-past-the-post system, there would be a ranked ballot.
A ranked ballot is as simple as it sounds, and it's easy as 1, 2, 3. Instead of picking your favorite candidate, you rank your favorite, your second favorite, your third.
This would, in turn, allow for a more diverse cast of politicians to enter government. Even though this idea was rejected by Trudeau's Liberal government, the system can be implemented. anything can happen anywhere with the right motivation. Our world is divided into various economic groups. Amongst them are low development countries, LDCs for short. These countries are often in war or in other undesirable situations that hinder their ability to develop their economy. Their progress stagnates and the looming issues of poverty and hunger do not disappear. Their Human Development Index, or HDI, and Gross Domestic Product, or GDP, remain very low. They fall behind as other countries such as Canada or the United States continue to prosper and grow. For example, Ethiopia holds the 173rd highest position for HDI in the world with a score of 0.463. To give you an idea of how low that is, Canada's ranking is 14th in the world with a score of 0.926. According to CNN, Ethiopia pursued a large-scale infrastructure project that accounted for 5% of their GDP. They built the Renaissance Dam. If other poor countries follow suit, capitalize on their resources, and try to erase their status as an LDC, then maybe they will be able to grow. Poverty will inspire the desire for change. In light of a different type of issue, the way that the economy has come to prosper has led severe blows to be dealt to the environment. As a race, we possess the knowledge to reverse our wrongdoings. The time to act is now. The non-fiction book To Humankind's Best Days Lie Ahead by Steven Pinker and Matt Ridley explains how climate change is an economic problem. According to Steven Pinker, both the analysis of climate change and the possible solutions are economic problems, which means that in order to mitigate the damage perpetrated against the environment is to push the production of cleaner energy sources. Factories, oil refineries, and transportation, all of these things pollute our environment for the sake of the consumer. According to Pinker, the methods in which humankind can possibly reverse the harmful environmental effects is through the means of producing and selling cleaner energy sources. We currently stand in the perfect environment for action to be taken. When a new invention is developed and brought to the public, there are always people who manage to take it and abuse it. The injustices and evils of the world inspire people to take action, and in today's day and age, the population has the capacity to voice their concern. Take the wave of sex-selective abortions in China as an example. According to Johnson, the ultrasound, invented to prevent complications during childbirth, was used to abort female fetuses. At the time, Chinese society valued male strength and the ability to work, while feminine traits were seen as undesirable. Johnson claims that the ratio of male babies to female babies reached approximately 130 boys for every 100 girls. Occurrences like these spark emotional outbursts from activists around the world. This is the sense of indignation that makes it possible for change to occur. According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine and National Institutes of Health, realization of the potentially disastrous effects of this distortion in the sex ratio required governments to take action. According to Pinker, nanotechnology was being abused as well.
Nanotechnology is the manipulation of matter on an atomic and molecular scale in order to develop certain properties, like the mechanical, electrical, and magnetic properties as an example, that are not otherwise possible. How atoms and molecules are arranged for a given material gives insight to why certain materials break when being dropped and why others stretch when being pulled. So if we can manipulate those atoms, then we can change those properties, like making glasses that don't break when being dropped.
Nanotechnology allowed us to see individual atoms for the first time and treat water infected by deadly microscopic organisms. Scientific advancement and saving lives are amongst the many positive outcomes of experimentation with nanotechnology. However, in November 2014, the U.S. Navy released a YouTube video of a laser weapon that was developed using nanotechnology. This is yet another example of the adverse effects that bringing a new invention into the world can cause. The state of our world's environment is heartbreaking. It gets worse and worse every day, and we are single-handedly responsible for the irreversible damage being done. In his debate with Malcolm Gladwell, Pinker mentions that the real problem is that ignorant people live their life thinking that their actions do not have consequences. If this mindset is maintained, let me ask you, do humankind's best days lie ahead? Fortunately, more people are being educated on the reality of our situation. Scientists around the world have noticed and taken it upon themselves to discover cleaner energy sources. Now, for the sake of our future, the market for energy is being diversified because of the state of our environment. Geothermal plants are being erected, electric cars are being manufactured, solar energy is being popularized. The third industrial revolution has begun. According to Jeremy Rifkin, in his interview, A New Era of Capitalism, our oil reserves will be depleted in 50 years. He predicts that we will be forced to adapt existing technology to different types of new, cleaner, carbonless energy sources. He explains how we are transferring to a post-carbon era and on the verge of creating a sustainable economic paradigm, something he calls the collaborative age. This new era will be characterized by the idea of what he calls lateral power. In the future, we can share energy, sell energy, or keep the energy for ourselves. Lateral power will lay the foundation for the new world economy. We have no other option. Therefore, this is something that can evoke change. In the more recent years, the world's perspective on religion has shifted from an orthodox standpoint to a more secular one. Just centuries ago, religion was the DNA of our existence. Now, people have more faith in science. Back then, nobody would have thought that in a few hundred years some people would doubt the existence of a higher power. The times have clearly changed. Now, instead of the non-believers being excommunicated, people who take a more orthodox stance on religion are being ostracized and forced into isolation. The Pew Research Global Study in 2010 found that 16% of the global population to be unaffiliated with a religion, and that number is increasingly growing. Franz de Waal, author of the non-fiction book The Bonobo and the Atheist, explains the importance of understanding both religion and science. After distancing himself from religion, he developed the argumentative theory. This is to allow discussion between people with different values. It is not to see who is telling the truth, rather, it is to understand the other side's perspective. De Waal explains that religion is not the enemy of science, rather they are intertwined. With the increase of atheism in the last few decades, more discussion and ideas are able to develop. Presently, people are becoming progressively more open-minded. More knowledge enlarges the possibilities of what humans could do. It seems as though humanity is at a peak of possibility. Just like a pendulum suspended at its highest point, our generation is primed. Our pendulum swoops and regains momentum. The possibility possessed now turns into ability, and we are ready to make change occur. It can be concluded that the society in which we live supplies us with all of the tools necessary to make an impact. Now that you know that you are in fact capable to change the world, will you?